I'm sure you get so many kind of just basic questions when people are just starting off. What's the question you're done answering for beginners?
It's funny because I don't think through that frame that often. I have empathy to understand that, like, who am I to say I'm not willing to repeat myself? But I think probably the question that people should stop asking in the beginning is, honestly, let's just go with my biggest contrarian take. How do I go viral? Yeah, I think having that be your North Star and the starting point causes you to do things and optimize in ways that I do not think are good. Nothing wrong with going viral. I think when you optimize for it, it causes you to talk about things and do things that are not in the best interest of your long-term success. It's kind of like a reference that I use is Phil Jackson, the coach of the LA Lakers, the Chicago Bulls. He coached two of some of the greatest basketball players of all time in Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And he talked about the fact that with these teams, they did not optimize for winning championships. They won a lot of them. But they didn't optimize for that. They optimized for brotherhood, and brotherhood took care of winning. I believe that if you optimize for trust, you take care of the right people seeing your content. If you optimize for virality, you do not end up solving problems for the ideal person. You attract an audience that is not in line with what you offer to the world.
And what makes them ask that? They see something go viral, get tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views, and they're like, I want to be that person. I want to be famous. I want to go viral, versus thinking about it from your 4-step brand journey framework, which what is the outcome? If the goal is, let's say, revenue at the end of the day, then maybe I don't need to go viral.
I think it comes from a couple of things. I think there's the assumption that just more eyeballs equals more money. There's still this belief in the world that, like, all of these influencers online are like mega rich. 3/4 of them are not at all, and they are renting a lot of the things that you're seeing, that they're using as social proof to indicate that they are successful. And so I think that there is just a complete misunderstanding. I also think that a lot of content strategists and individuals who teach this shit have cracked a code on how to get a lot of views. It's not incredibly hard if you're willing to just talk about anything or do any sort of like activities within your content. And they've gotten really good at cracking that code, and that's how they monetize. And so they have been teaching people that this is what you need to do to get success, work with me. And so the thing that I would always look at for people is, when you're taking advice from somebody, what is their incentive? What are they incentivized on? And is that clouding how they're teaching you? It's what people think they want. It's what all the strategists are talking about. And so it's permeated the zeitgeist. But I've been seeing this change. I don't know about you, but when I go onto my YouTube page, my homepage lately, I've been seeing a lot more people talking about optimizing for trust than virality. I do feel like it is starting to shift, which is good.
And with that, let's go into level 2. So level 2 is you've crossed 1,000 followers. This is the 1,000 followers. You're trying to get up to 10,000 followers, okay? So if someone crosses 1,000 followers, okay, what does that number actually tell you about the content, and what should their kind of next move be, right? They've started to build a little traction. They started to get a following. And now how do we go from 1,000 to 10,000, the next level?
I think honestly at that stage it's just doing more. It's literally just doing more. Like really up until even like 100,000 followers, it's more about looking at what's working and just doing more of that at a higher frequency to the best of your ability. And so, I mean, that would honestly be my answer, is trying to serve the audience in the best way possible and making sure that when you see something that works, you are pouring gasoline on that fire. For us in the beginning on Instagram, we very quickly realized that anytime we talk about the brand journey framework, it really fucking hits. And so what did Trevor start doing? Well, let's start posting more about that, right? And so it's just figuring out what's working. And the biggest, actually, here's the biggest unlock that is super obvious and nobody's doing. Look at your data. Start tracking the actual performance. Like, stop guessing, stop saying, oh, I think this is doing well. The amount of people, actually, honestly, the amount of very sophisticated individuals that are marketing gangsters that understand this concept in every other area of their business, but don't apply it to their personal brand and organic content is insane. And so the big thing that I would recommend is at this point, you should calculate your 90-day median on the metric that you are tracking. If you're tracking views, likes, saves, shares, conversions, whatever you are tracking, I want you to calculate the median for the last 90 days, and then you need to grade all future content against that. And you need to update this median every 30 days. This is going to give you, this is something that like Trevor built this whole cool like spreadsheet where we're able to just enter in, you know, if we're tracking views, this got X amount of views, and immediately we see, oh, it's a 1.5x or it's a 0.5x. And it just becomes so fucking clear if you do this every week, every month, every quarter. If you do this, it becomes so clear what you should continue making and what you should stop making. Emphasis on that second part. So many people in this stage, in the 1,000 to 100,000, even to 1 million, are posting shit that they know isn't working. Why? I don't know. I have not cracked that psychology, but they are doing this. And when you actually start tracking the data, it becomes fucking obvious why shit is working and why shit isn't working, and what you need to double down on and what you need to remove. And the biggest thing that I would say too is back to that batching thing. That's the other thing that a lot of people in this stage are making the mistake of, is they're batching 100 shorts in a session. But after 10 of them, you have enough learnings to make a lot of modifications. But now we have this like sunk cost fallacy of, well, I filmed these other 90, I got to distribute them. And so they're not operating off of data, and they're not iterating off of data.
So data is really, really important at this stage. Looking at your outliers, looking at your wins, doubling down on those, and constantly, every 30 days, constantly analyzing data, because things might change. You might have a different outlier. You know, I might need to go in a different direction. Now, if a video, and let's say at this stage, gets 1 million views when they normally would get 10,000, right? How much of that is the creator, is the niche, is the luck, is the format? How does someone know, right? Because at this stage, they have data. Okay, this video got more views than the other, but what contributed to that? You know, what if that's a similar video than what they've made before? How do they know what it was that actually gave them the success there?
You could either sit in a room and debate for a couple hours what it might be, or you could pick one of those variables that you just mentioned, test it in the next video, and validate. And so the big overarching principle here is, instead of debating, just do. I'm a big fan of test. If Trevor and I are sitting there going back and forth trying to figure out how something is going to do, or if this is a good idea, we're like, wait a second, we're falling into that trap. Let's just fucking do it. So for example, actually, the video that we filmed yesterday, what we're doing is something very similar to what we did in January. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I promise it's useful. In January, what we did is we filmed an entire course that we were going to release on how to start your personal brand. We filmed it in 3 chunks: brand positioning, content strategy, and then a podcast between Trevor and I talking about everything we did month by month in the first year to grow my personal brand. We released all 3 of those individually as videos. And then the 4th week, we released the full course stacked together. What we did yesterday is the exact same thing. And what we wanted to test, I have this crazy idea where I wanted, basically one of our intros is just 2, maybe 3 sentences tops. And it's actually only using a call out and core learning. And that's it. And I just wanted to test and see, because if we believe that learning is the greatest retention hack, why would we not start our opening sentence with a learning? That's a theory though. And so we could debate it all day long, or we could just say, fuck it, let's do it for one of these videos. And so that is the mode of operation for people. The other thing that I want to real quick call out is, actually, I would say really 0 to 10,000 followers. Data is important, but the most important thing, because I wouldn't even distinguish 0 to 1,000, I would just go 0 to 10. It's just the consistency. It's like going to the gym. Like, I have tended to yo-yo on my fitness journey my whole life. I have a background in powerlifting, and ever since then I've had seasons where I get back into it, and then I go off the wagon, so to speak. When I get back into lifting, my whole goal for the first 2 weeks is just to get to the gym. I don't need some crazy workout. I don't need it to be optimized. I need to build the habit of doing it. And so 0 to 10,000 followers, honestly, you just need to be building the habit of showing up consistently and doing this every day. After 10K, let's start getting more optimization focused. You can do that before, by all means. I just think for most people, that is a bigger barrier to entry than maybe we realize. And so in the beginning, it's about the consistency and building the habit. 10 to 100,000 followers and beyond, that's when the data and iteration off of that data becomes really important. If you watch that podcast between Trevor and I, the fucking obvious theme of our first year was iteration. Like, we do not do things because we have always done them. We always are shifting based on new information.
Guys, we've been so passionate about finding the biggest geniuses, and this is just one of the many episodes. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next one, make sure to subscribe. All right, let's get back to the episode. And you're the first person I've heard mention the idea of negative association with a brand. And so can you give us some examples of what it looks like to get this wrong, right? And I'm sure you have some. What's bad brand positioning?
I will not give any specific examples because I am not a call-out creator. I am a contrarian creator, which means I don't call out individuals, I call out concepts. So I'll speak to this at a high level, but I guarantee everyone's going to imagine individuals in their head. The first obvious one is if you are wanting to build a personal brand that is known for providing value and being trustworthy. And you and I both know, it was something that when we were driving here, looking at like your pages, like it felt like you were the opposite of this side of the internet, which is there's a lot of people that sell shit that they would never buy themselves and that isn't really all that useful. And they know it's not. They're incredible marketers and they're terrible with a product, right? If you want to build a brand where you're known for delivering value and being trustworthy, if you show up with these individuals, let's say on a podcast, for example, the more that you show up with these individuals, the more that is the filter or the lens that the audience will view you through. And so that's one version of it, of showing up with an individual with a bad reputation. And I'm not even saying a bad reputation like inherently bad. I'm saying bad as in opposite of the direction you are wanting to go. So a negative association isn't an inherently negative. I'm not out here trying to make value claims. I'm not a morality expert. But what I am very good at understanding is you have articulated what you want to accomplish. Anybody whose brand reflects the opposite of that, do not pair yourself with, right? And so that's one version. The other, though, is actually subject matter that you speak to. A really good example here is if you are trying to reach high-level operators and entrepreneurs who have 10-figure plus businesses, the last thing that you want to pair yourself with online is any subject matter around get rich quick, right? Because they have massive negative associations with that concept. They hate that shit. A lot of those individuals laugh at the creators talking about passive income. They're like, nothing is passive, right? Like passive income is horseshit, right? That's what I've heard from every single one of these big dogs that I've worked with is like, they laugh at those things. And so understanding who you're trying to reach and making sure that you not only pair yourself with the stuff that they find positive and will be attracted to, but you make sure to identify what are all the things that if I show up this way with this person, talking about this thing, referencing these things, will cause me to lose trust or interest with those individuals.
Maybe the problem with starting off is not knowing the questions to ask. What's the advice that maybe no one asks you but needs to be answered?
It's the opposite of the one that I said should stop being asked. Instead of asking, how do I go viral or how do I get the most views? The question that you should start every piece of content with is, how do I serve the audience the best with this? How do I solve the biggest or most amount of problems for my ideal customer? So many people right now are starting with their competitors in mind and copying what their competitors are doing and what's working. And we're going into this like phase, I believe, of the internet where everything feels over optimized. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about our favorite podcasts and creators and how their content now has become over optimized and it lacks this like human character. And so I think if you start with your own selfish desire in mind, you work yourself down towards that path where your audience feels like there is a disconnect. Sure, you're getting a lot of views, but the people you're trying to reach don't feel like you're actually serving them anymore. Versus if you start with your audience in mind, how do I solve their very painful problems? And I define painful problems as just costly. Cost them a lot of money, time, stress, anxiety, relationship equity, whatever it is, right? These costly, painful problems that they have, people need to start with that in mind on how they come up with ideas. Like what I will tell you is we do not go to oneof10.com and look at what everybody who's making content about personal brand is doing and then figure out how do we make that video. What we do is we start with the problem that our ideal customer is facing, our unique solution, and then we go to 1 of 10 and utilize that to help wrap the gift that we want to give our viewer, our customer. Does that make sense?
Yep. And for the audience listening out there, 1 of 10 is a platform where you can find outlier videos, right? So you can see packaging in terms of title, thumbnail, and what you'll see on there is a lot of creators will copy each other because one will have an amazing outlier with a specific format of a title or thumbnail or both, the packaging of a YouTube video, and then you'll start to see a bunch of other creators do that. So you're not starting by going there. You may go there later after you have your core concept idea, delivery, and may go there for ideas on packaging or ideas on title or thumbnail, and maybe use some of that, maybe not copy directly. And so we're not starting with that though.
Correct. And what we do is we don't look inside our niche, we look outside our niche. I don't want to look like it just, when I say these things out loud, it sounds so fucking obvious, but it's what everybody's doing. If you want to stand out, why would you want to look like everybody else? It makes no sense. And what the big dogs in your space that y'all are copying are doing is this. They're looking outside of their niche when they're doing it correctly. The other thing that we do that I'll add in here, this is for the advanced individuals, is we call it Frankensteining. And so it's not necessarily taking a 1-for-1, oh, we love this title and thumbnail combo, but it's we like this thumbnail over here and we like this title format here. Let's combine them to wrap the problem and solution that we're giving our audience.